and welcome to the We Whistle podcast. So, the journey to the top, the journey to excellence is never linear. And we're going to hear a lot about some of the curves and bends that make journeys rewarding. This is why we love heroes, right? Excellence requires a couple of things that we hear often about: persistence, discipline, and above all, the ability to navigate uncertainty. The other thing we talk a lot about is having courage. And a lot of times it's having the courage to take big risks for rewards that sometimes may or may not pan out. And the humility to learn from failure and the ability to build relationships and communities that opens doors and compounds over time. It's particularly hard when that journey involves crossing countries, crossing borders. And for many of us, that comes when we arrive in different countries, whether it's as immigrants or expats or students or simply someone either in our lineage or we ourselves plant our seeds, plant our roots somewhere new from where we started. And then the path becomes even more complex. Across the world, leaders from the Caribbean diaspora continue to rise inside some of the most demanding industries and environments. On this podcast, we explore how that happens. We try to extract some lessons learned, and above all, we have a little bit of fun with it. When we speak with Caribbean leaders who have built careers, businesses, and influence abroad, we seek to understand and look beyond just the outcomes and the return on investment, as we like to call it. And we want to understand the journey themselves and the person inside the story. I'm Stacey Luces. I'm joined by my co-host and fellow Whistle co-founder, Denise Williams.
Shout out, everybody.
And together through this podcast, we explore journeys of Caribbean diaspora leaders operating across industries and across borders.
And today we're going to explore one such leader who has really navigated one of the most complex industries globally. In the US, the healthcare sector is estimated a $4.6 trillion industry. They say, yep, you heard that, trillion.
Wow.
Yeah. $4 trillion. And
we're so unused to saying trillion. We're like trillion.
Yes. And it's also, I would say, estimated about 18% of the GDP of the US. So when we find a Caribbean-rooted leader who has navigated this space from a deep sense of responsibility and humanity and excellence, Stacey and I just had to get him on the podcast and really deep dive a little bit into his journey. So our guest today is Raymond Levy. Raymond is the president and CEO of Total Medical Management. And he's also the chairman and CEO of something very special, an NGO called Alternative Healthcare Solutions. Raymond has been navigating this very complex space for decades. He's been building relationships, honing his skills, trying, failing, succeeding, and really expanding into new areas. Today, he builds more than just medical organizations. He builds networks. He builds systems of support for physicians and other professionals. And he builds pathways that make healthcare more accessible to communities. Welcome. Raymond.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for the 2-hour drive. I don't think you guys appreciate how passionate and determined our guests are, but we really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us.
Not a problem.
2 hours. Okay, let's jump into it. Before we uncover what you've done in the healthcare space, let's talk about Raymond. You were born in Jamaica, but you've spent really much your entire life in the U.S. Tell us a little bit about your early journey.
Well, my early journey was my brother and my sister raised in kind of a latchkey home.
Mm-hmm.
My mother worked 3 jobs.
Wow.
Actually, at one time there was a write-up in Miami-Dade Community College for a superwoman.
Wow.
She worked as a nurse. She was going to school. She cleaned houses. So
Shout out to the Superwoman.
Superwoman, correct. And I think I kind of gained a lot of my inspiration and hard work through her. The old cliche that they say about Jamaicans having multiple jobs. Well, that's how I started. It's funny because I remember in college I did a thesis on my family. All single aunts
Wow.
that were all had type A personalities that were just driven in their sectors, whether my aunt was a VP at American Express, my other aunt being a respiratory therapist at Mount Sinai Hospital.
You grew up around Caribbean
Yes.
excellence.
My mother working 3 jobs, going to school. Those are the things that I kind of remember that kind of helped inspired me to kind of look, hey, you can make excuses if you want to, but no one's going to listen.
Yeah, I wanna stick with that strong family ties. Like when we started to speak with you and get to know you a little bit more, you really have built a community of family around you. Why?
You know what? To be honest with you, my business partner and my cousin Keith is the one that kind of pushed me in that direction. It's, I've never actually had that thought, and he explained it to me. I'm like, hey, who best to trust in family?
Right.
My father, my uncles, his father, they all built a legacy that we're trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And we didn't want the legacy to die, so we decided, you know what, let's incorporate family and let's push this forward.
And your dad has a history in the healthcare industry, as I understand.
Correct, and didn't even know it. He was a Rotary member, did a lot of things in the community. He was a general contractor. He was kind of like all the things that I'm doing. He was never just in one sector. He was in multiple sectors. But one thing he did try to do is build his community. And wherever there was a need in the community, he kind of jumped right in. And one of the spaces was healthcare.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sat on the board at Maypen Hospital for years because he saw a need for leadership and kind of guiding the hospital in the right direction.
People hear Maypen. What is that? Where is that?
St. Clarendon. Even though he pretty much grew
Rural
up
Jamaica.
rural Jamaica. He grew up in Mandeville. He settled in Maypen, and he kind of built a community there in Maypen.
Oh.
So one of the big things we talk about on this podcast is leadership. And obviously, having just heard the vast wellspring of leaders that you grew up watching Caribbean excellence as something that was normal. I think one of the things as an immigrant, so I came here kind of like you as a child and grew up in America. And one of the most beautiful revelations I had last year was, I didn't have the privilege of watching Caribbean leaders as part of my normal day-to-day. We observe it in the pockets you just talked about, watching our parents work multiple jobs. I myself, as a kid in college, worked 3 jobs. I had to laugh when you were talking about it because it was just what we did, right? All of us. But talk to me about, we also bonded just now. So I'm the eldest of 5 and you have 5 kids.
Correct.
As a father, bringing all of those rich leadership perspectives and habits and disciplines and goals, raising the next generation. Talk to us about what does success mean to you in the roles that you play, not only from a business perspective, but being a steward in your family.
It's a difficult balance. I want what's best for my family first.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm not Albert Einstein. I lead through experiences, failures, and I try to impart that in my kids. So, there's no expectation initially. It's not how you start; it's how you finish. I'll give you a perfect example. My oldest daughter, who's 35.
Please shout them out. I'm sure they're going to listen to this.
Yes, please shout
We
out the
aim to
kids.
make everybody, my son calls it cringe, but I was like, I will call you out,
Yeah.
son.
Ariel, she grew up, she's a very pretty girl, in South Florida. It sometimes could get you far.
I love that.
She was in the club scene, bartending. She was a
Wow.
concierge in hotels. and
You have
kind
to
of,
use your resources, man.
yeah, you know what? And she did, but what I told her is like, look, hey, you know what? Your beauty, your aura sometimes starts to diminish. So you have to be able to. And my goal with her was making her independent.
Yeah.
I never wanted her to be independent on any other person, any man.
Mhm.
So I'm like, look, hey, gain your independence. You're doing this now, for an end goal later on. And she made me proud the other day. She got her nursing degree, and now she's an RN.
Congratulations.
So that was my biggest worry of all my kids.
Yeah.
She's my oldest, so and I
Mhm.
always told her, look, it's not how you start, it's how you finish, and I think she's finishing well.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that.
I love that
Mhm.
too. That's amazing.
I love that.
You talk about healthcare, right?
Mhm.
And when we were diving into what you do, you build ecosystems, really
Mhm.
ecosystems for and spaces for doctors and medical practitioners, but also spaces that the community can access. Tell us about your healthcare journey, because that's, to me, is fascinating.
You
How
know,
does an athlete move from an athlete to that space?
it was just I stumbled on it. It wasn't something that was preordained.
Yeah.
I finished my football career and settled back in South Florida. And I had two jobs when I first came back. How funny,
We
two
never know
jobs,
how
right?
to do one, huh?
I woke up at 3:30 in the morning, and I used to shuffle packages off of the UPS rigs into the small brown trucks you see driving around town. That was kind of my workout in the morning. 3:30 a.m. to
3:30
8
a.m.
a.m. to 8 a.m.
First
Enough
shift.
first shift, enough time for me to shower and go on to my other job, getting there at 9 a.m. So my other job was working for a company called Neighborhood Health Partnership. It was a HMO
Mhm.
that eventually was bought up by UnitedHealthcare, which is the largest healthcare provider in the world, actually. I served 10 years there, kind of learning the ropes about healthcare. And I noticed that there was kind of a disparity between the underserved population and, say, Coral Gables, Pinecrest, those areas.
Mhm.
Um, there weren't many minority leaders, I guess, where the company kind of understood. And I think a lot of the company that I worked for couldn't kind of navigate through the inner city and underserved areas. So I think they kind of used me as a tool to kind of
Mhm.
penetrate those markets. And
Mhm.
I kind of ran with it. I saw there was a need. My vision was to have a medical center in a Liberty City, an Overtown, a Perrine, or Goulds that look like Coral Gables.
Yeah.
Because you're in the underserved community doesn't mean um, aesthetically has to look like it. So that
Right.
was kind of my vision, and that's what I started to do. I started managing medical facilities in those underserved areas. Thank God, a lot of the providers, doctors that I partnered with, believed in me, and they helped me kind of navigate through that, manage them for a little bit, and I started acquiring medical centers in
Yeah.
those underserved areas, built them out to look aesthetically nice, and so I purchase them, build them up, and sell them. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah,
I
and
want
then
to I want to unpack that a little bit,
mhm,
because there is so many nuggets for all of us listening to your story. So the first thing you learned,
mhm,
you took the time to learn a system that was new to you.
correct.
But you had a vision. You saw a gap. You saw a gap, and you allowed yourself to be a tool. And then you had a vision for completely closing that gap. That was some risks that I'm hearing you talking about. And then really just steadfastly going after starting small, building the businesses, selling it, moving on.
Mhm,
For younger people now, and they're built very differently from us, and you have kids, so you know this, right? I don't, but I adopt all of the kids around me. For for the young people looking on, and what advice you would give to them, or even for us, in terms of building something so life changing.
One thing I've learned about the Gen Zs and the Gen Xs or whatever you want to call it,
It's beyond that now. It's like alpha and,
Yeah, I'm still trying to keep
omega.
Still trying to keep up.
Me too.
The thing with them is everything is instant gratification, right?
Right.
And I think with technology how it's evolved, boots on the ground, manual labor sometimes is not understanding for them. So that all they know is, hey, social media, everything technological, not about having that face-to-face conversation, relationships outside of technology. And that's my advice is that, the technology can only take you so far. I think it's helpful and you commingle both the old and the new.
Yeah.
But I think if you rely on any one of them, I think that it'll be a challenge.
I want to offer us a reframe. One of the leaders I worked with a couple of years ago, we used to say things like minorities and underserved communities, and she offered this. It was a reframe that was so powerful for me that I literally felt different within the next second of hearing it. And it was, we are really the global majority, and we are underestimated communities. And I think your story just now lent itself to, even aesthetically, what you did for the communities improved, whether it was that, I want to use the word aura because you used it for your daughter, but their vibe, right? Their vibration, what they thought was possible, how they felt by someone coming in and changing something because they were worth it. So when I came here to America, we moved to Maryland, and it was a horrible part of town. It was Langley Park. Sorry, Langley Park, but it was a lot of immigrants, and there were, street shops, corners everywhere. My dad, I think, was in agony because he was like, what did I do moving here with my 4 daughters and my son? I was 17 at the time, so everybody was under 17, right? My youngest sister was 6 or 7. But when you talk about the disparity between some of the areas that you were seeing and the underestimated communities, and even thinking back to breaking healthcare barriers, which is the foundation that you guys have. And my question is about the foundation. When you looked at all of these things and building off of what Denise said, using the tools that you have and closing that gap, what inspired you to go further with breaking healthcare barriers and to actually inspire doctors to serve in a way that was not necessarily straightforward?
I think it's just more ignorance. I think, we only know what we know, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the physicians most physicians, they do it because it's in their heart to do it.
Yeah.
I think most of them, obviously, the monetizing part of it, comes in, but they do it because it's a selfless act, and that's something that they're passionate about.
Yeah.
Now it's just about contacting them and saying, hey, I'm a vessel to help put this together. I'm not a clinician, I'm just a businessman that kind of navigated through the industry. When I started breaking healthcare barriers, I already had another charity. We did an educational charity in Jamaica for years. My mother was a nurse. The last conversation I had before Mother's Day, I remember vividly. She had a photo album with older house. I thought it was a house, but she told me no, that was a hospital she was born in. So, she's like, I wish you'd do a healthcare charity in Jamaica, for the area I grew up in Clarendon. I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. The conversation didn't go past that. She ended up going into the hospital on Mother's Day and never coming back out.
Wow. I got full chills with that. Yeah.
So I said, you know what? That was a sign.
Yeah.
That was a sign that I wanted to kind of push forward with this. And I don't know if she's looking down, but man, it's Godspeed. It actually, and I've talked to a lot of other charities that have been in Jamaica for years. A few of the doctors that kind of helped me after Hurricane Melissa have been in Jamaica for the last 10, 20 years. They're like, how is it possible that you built this in such a short period of time?
Yeah.
How is it possible that you built it in
I was
such a
just
short
thinking, right?
period of time?
I think it's a combination of obviously a good infrastructure, good partners,
Yeah.
family that's helped me on the ground there.
The inside track.
Inside track, but at the same time, just, I've vested probably a little bit more than I probably should.
Mhm.
And a lot of these charities, they rely solely on donations. And, I took some money out of my back pocket to help kind of fund this. And then we're going to now start to put together the fundraising infrastructure. I'm an avid golfer. So I have a golf club with about 80 um, Caribbean, whether you call them Jamaican, Trinidadians, Cubans.
Shout out to the Caribbean golfers.
We all get together. So I'm like, you know what?
I got to get on board with that.
The light went off in my head. I'm like, you know what? I already have a captive audience.
Yeah.
Let's do this. So we're going to try to start doing our first annual Breaking Healthcare Barriers golf tournament next year. We're putting it together now. So
Are you going to teach us to play golf so we can
Sure.
come join you?
Yes,
Come on.
yes.
Between
I think
myself-
we shared when we had lunch a couple of days ago. Was it a week ago?
A week ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a little bit of PTSD over my first golf swing.
Yeah. Well, we'll get lessons.
my 11-year-old is actually more technical than I am in
I
terms
love
of
it.
teaching you to swing.
Love
So
it.
as long as you don't mind an 11-year-old teaching you how to swing.
No, we love it.
Absolutely not. Whoever the expert is, for sure.
Before Denz jumps in, one question, right?
Mhm.
What hard things, I don't want to use the word failures, right? Or what hard things had to happen in establishing and running a successful foundation? Like, what are the truths that nobody really shares, but it had to happen because the lesson was worth it to do better next time, maybe? For those of us like thinking about it, right?
No, I already know.
Yeah,
Already
tell
know
me. Tell us.
Sometimes our egos get in the way, especially as men. One thing I think that helps me tremendously is listening.
Mm.
I listen to, one of the things that we do after each mission, we debrief.
Yeah.
And you get so much insight from folks, whether they're just volunteers, whether they're nurses, whether they're doctors. They're like, wow, I never thought about that. So that has been my probably most important takeaway, is just listening to what's out there and getting. Now, some of their opinions may not be valid, but I would say 90% of them are. You just try to work with those and go forward.
Yeah. I was intrigued when you said you have about 60, 70, 80 golf people who work with you from all over the Caribbean.
Mhm.
There's a group of us who've made the global homes, right? In
Mhm.
this case, the US. And when we look at what's happened in the Caribbean, there's this what we call the brain drain. So in your sector, I would say somewhere I was reading between 40 and 60% of doctors and medical practitioners make their way out of the countries. What you are doing is actually finding a way for expertise to get back into not just Jamaica, but I think you're going to go do the Caribbean, which brings me to what is the appetite for people now that they have made it, now that they're established, now that they have reflected on their life? What is their appetite really to help communities that they came from to really rise in the way that we rise in the diaspora?
I think the appetite is there. I think it's just a conduit. I think it's just the ignorance of trying to, okay, who do I go to help myself give back to the diaspora community? And a lot of times, it's hard to find. You think it's very simple, but sometimes it's difficult.
Oh, we
fi-
know.
to find the right organization
Yep.
that has the same mindset you do. Sometimes it's some organizations do it for the right reasons, some don't. I think it's just a matter of just now putting together resources, and that's what I'm trying to do now. I started as a very small mission. We started in Clarendon at Chapelton Hospital 2 times a year. Actually, just once a year, actually, in 2 days. And now it's just a matter of okay, are we going to expand this? And what we did was, after Hurricane Melissa, God kind of put us in the right place. We kind of, Doctors Without Borders, it took some time to assemble. We were there a week after the hurricane.
Wow.
We
Congratulations.
assembled,
That's amazing.
think about 60-something physicians,
Mhm.
nurses, volunteers.
And you were saying a week, like within a week.
Within a
yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Week after the hurricane, we put it together. We got some help from JetBlue in terms of providing flights, and we put a team together, and we went on for almost 3 months. We went from October until Christmas.
Tell us about that health mission. What
Mhm.
was the impact? What was the need you saw? What was the impact 3 months after, 4 months after?
Well, the impact was tremendous because we were going to locations. So the good thing was that we wanted to remain apolitical. I have family that's on both sides.
Yeah.
Um, so what we did was we reached out to both sides. We said, look, hey, we don't want, and what happens a lot of times is that there's a lot of labeling going on in Jamaica. Once you do one thing for one sector, they label you as one party. So we worked with the current administration. We worked with PJ Patterson with the other administration to kind of say, look, hey, you give me your area of needs and we'll put it in our schedule. And so we did. So we went through, I think, 20 some odd locations in rural parts of Jamaica that still had no communication, still had no phone lines. We dropped off a couple of Starlinks in those areas that still didn't have communications. We brought our volunteers, our medical experts. We worked out of tents. We worked out of schools. We worked out of damaged healthcare facilities. So we ran the gamut. We ran, wherever we could set up shop and, we could see the patients, we did that.
Yeah.
We tried to, have, the town crier, the community kind of put it out there with enough notice to get everyone there. And we were tremendously surprised at how many people lined up to see us.
And I understand it wasn't just doctors, it was dentists and nurses and psychologists and just general
Geriatric care. Yeah.
general
Whoever
care.
could lend a helping hand. And how it started is that my medical director from my New York business, Dr. Henry Paul, he's from Medinova. So he has his own charity he does in Haiti and Dominican Republic. He's been doing it for 20 years. So when I reached out to him, he's like, Ray, with all the things going on in Haiti, we've kind of been sitting on our hands waiting to do something. And it was a perfect opportunity because he reached out to all the folks that supported his Medinova charity. And now we had literally, we had like maybe 20 doctors lined up. So we did 4-day shifts. We would start on a Monday and on a Thursday. The new shift would come in on Thursday, come back around till Monday. So we did 2 shifts a week running for almost 3 months.
Wow.
And we had enough clinicians, whether it was volunteers, whether it was pharmacists, whether it was pediatrics, whether it was dental. We had the whole gamut.
That's so powerful. And I don't know that when we talked, we told you why we picked the name Whistle, not only for our organization, but for the podcast. So in the Caribbean Sea, there's this phenomenon that scientists discovered. And out of the entire ocean, it's only in the Caribbean Sea. And the scientist that discovered it, his name was Rossby. And what they discovered was this sound, this very distinct pulse frequency, pitch,
vibration,
that at times was so stealth around the islands, it disappeared. And then many times it was so powerful it actually could be detected from out of space. And we love the symbolism of that for the Caribbean diaspora coming from the Caribbean Sea, because that's who we are and what you've just shared, right? That resiliency, that ability to take no thing and make it something. And we all carry that, whether we're working 4 jobs, raising children, raising our parents, helping our grandparents. And you've sort of translated that not only here in the States, but back to the islands and then working across the world, right? It's sort of the epitome of how Caribbean diaspora leaders whistle. So we called it Whistle, right?
Okay.
But also, the whistle itself is a pulse, it's a sound, it's a warning, it's a start, it's joyful. What do you think, now that we were officially anointed you a whistler, what's your Caribbean superpower that you think, from everything I just said, makes you so distinctively you? And don't be shy about it, yeah? We have to have a really strong way to share these things. What's your superpower that gives you the courage, the moral compass, to carry on when things look really dark and to navigate some bureaucracies and all of that stuff, but also the inspiration to just say, I can do better?
I think I'm blessed and gifted with an ability to problem solve. Look, you can make excuses for things not happening, but at the end of the day, it's all about results, right?
Yeah.
It's about, my biggest issue when I spoke at one of the diaspora meeting years ago was that, we bottleneck ourselves. We have people here all over the world that want to give back to our community. But I think it becomes very bureaucratical in terms of me wanting to give or anyone wanting to give money back. You have to go through this process, and sometimes the process doesn't work. It doesn't get to the people who need it. So it's my ability to to be realistic, to know, look, everyone has their price. Everyone has their method of you being able to penetrate and do the things you want to do to help the community. And it's about, look, hey, let us come to an agreement. Let us come to terms. Whether or not I have to pay someone else to get to the help to the people that need it, I have to do that. And I think a lot of times, a lot of diasporas, they get disenchanted when they have to go through that process. But I realized, look, hey, that's just reality. That's how the world works. And at the end of the day, if I could help one person after penetrating all the different barriers and the bottlenecks that are there, then it's worth it.
Yeah. It's not black and white, right?
It's not black and white. It's always a moving target.
Yeah.
I also think as I listen to some of the things you're saying, your superpower, in addition to problem solve, is really to build a network of support. Because I'm hearing you talking about New York. I'm hearing you talking about the doctors. I'm telling you about
quietly.
your golf buddies. But to bring that community around a bigger purpose, what we're doing at Whistle really is bringing a community of Caribbean leaders globally together, not just to do amazing things, but to have impact and to make sure the pathways for legacy are established. What do you think about an organization like that? If you had it earlier on in some of the work that you were doing, how do you think? And it's not for me to be self-serving. It's really because to demonstrate a need that sometimes we need that kind of compounding effect. But how do you think that would have helped you accelerate some of the things that you're doing?
I definitely think I would be in a more advantageous stage than I am now. I think it would be a lot larger. Um, you talked about Sean Paul being very shy. I'm shy.
Yeah.
I have my inner circle.
Thanks for taking a leap of trust with us and hopping on. We literally met him. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for coming on the
tr-
podcast.
Even with my companies now, I try to have my administrators get the recognition. I'm just behind the scenes, in hopes that, when I'm, long gone, that there's a legacy there that people can remember. I'm all about the legacy, not about my
Spotlight.
responsibility as a human being, a passionate human being on this earth now. And that's what I try to live by. I have a great inner circle of friends from all nationalities. I have 20 some odd partners in different business sectors that come from, whether they're Jewish, whether they're white, whether they're Caribbean, whether they're Black American, whether they're Indian. And you know what? I have this ability to make it work no matter what. They call me the Kofi Annan of
That's
the
the real superpower right there, right?
So that inner circle, that network is priceless.
Raymond, for the Gen X's and the Alphas, who is Kofi?
Boy.
We need to define who this person was. So
definitely an inspiration. Definitely an inspiration. I mean, he was United Nations. He brought all nationalities together. I mean, he was soft-spoken, very humble.
International leader.
He wasn't a tall 6'8" guy, very small guy, but when he spoke, people listen.
Yeah. When I think about the Caribbean and I think back to my life in Trinidad, we really come from a truly multicultural space where people coexist. I was telling a couple of friends of mine, at any given day growing up, I could be at a Diwali festival, which is a Hindu festival. I could be at the Muslim festival of Eid. I could be celebrating Easter, Christmas, Buddhism.
We do Thanksgiving and Halloween now too, because we just
well, now we do Thanksgiving and Halloween. But when you look also too at the circle of friends that you have,
Mhm.
it spans every race.
It does.
We do have our problems,
Mhm.
but I think the fact that we see humans as humans
Mhm.
and we've had to grow up with humans as humans, that is a superpower that we all have the potential
Mhm.
to leverage. So when I listen to you speak about how you've managed to bring all of these different groups together, that's actually where you come from. If you think about the
Right.
Chinese Jamaicans, the white Jamaicans, the black Jamaicans, the Indian Jamaicans, it's that kind of being able to get along.
Out of many one people.
Out of many one people in Trinidad, they say together we aspire, together we achieve. But it absolutely is, I think, one of the hidden potentials that we definitely have to tap into as we navigate the
Yeah.
complex global systems we're in now.
And I failed to mention that, my business partners and my circle of friends were all different political views. And the political views have no bearing on us treating each other like human beings, respect and love.
Yeah.
And we all get along. We don't typically talk about politics. And sometimes I listen to what their side is and they listen to my side. So
Yep.
it works.
Yeah. Your cousin Keith Levy, shout out to Keith, is
Shout
the
out to
one that
Keith.
introduced us. Keith was a keynote speaker for our We Were So Global preview event on December 9th.
Mm.
And much like you, we met with him days before the event and he blew us away. And then he showed up and really powerfully was vulnerable, but also really direct in sort of the shares and experiences he shared. He's now one of our key advisors, but I bring him up because one of the things he does with Denise and I, he'll sit very quietly and then he'll be like, let's dream a little,
Yeah.
right? So he leans back. But I want to do that with you and say, if you had to dream a little bit, right? For where you are right now, the things you're trying to accomplish, all of the players on the chessboard, what does a dream look like for Raymond 10 years out, maybe? Or even after you're gone?
A dream looks like that for me, that the world is not divided as much as it is. I think stark, you know, outlier that you're looking at now is war. I mean, I think back in the days when it was less technological, where everyone had to pick up a phone, or no one could pick up a phone. It would just,
Drive
talk
down
to
the
each
road.
other, drop down go to the water hole, the
Yeah.
bar, and speak
The
to each other.
junction, right?
I think social media has gotten the best of us. I think to the point where we no longer look at each other in the eye and speak face to face. It's um, through a computer, through a phone. And my wish is just that, it's less judgmental, and we give everyone an opportunity. Because I was one of those kids that grew up in the poor part of town, but my best friends were very affluent. Some of my best friends I grew up with in high school were still my attorneys, my CPA. Never would have thought 30 years later they'd be working for me.
Wow.
When I used to drive through the neighborhoods, I'm saying, why are they any different from me? We put on our pants one leg at a time. And now I look back, I'm like, where I'm living now compared to where I came from, I'm like, wow, my mom would be proud. But at the same time, you know, you gaining wealth, when you've been there, done that, I think priceless part of it is seeing your family healthy, seeing your friends healthy, seeing love, which, love is like cliche anymore, right? Those are the things that, I wish. I think it's going to take a long uphill battle for us to get back to. And you hear all the past generations say, man, this next generation is, I don't know how we're going to survive. And man, my mom used to tell me all the time, and now I'm seeing it. I'm looking at my kids saying, wow, I don't know how you guys are going to survive. But
I will tell you that one of the ways as a diaspora we think a way we survive is storytelling. And through whether it's this podcast or all the other means and ways that we can actually take back our power through these tools that have taken our power and share and be vulnerable and really create an access to each other that is necessary and critical, but also we've kind of neglected it for a long time.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think we've become complacent to it, and I see it, and I see the world's wealth is there for the minority to take. I just think that, once, we kind of get to that stage, we kind of just
Mm.
forget where we came from.
Oh.
I think if we don't forget where we came from and we build the village, one step at a time, I think we'll gain more power. I think we'll have a better livelihood. I
Be
think
happier, man.
the quality of life will be a lot better.
Yeah. Then you're interrupt us.
Yes, and I think, the story of your power, your story today has certainly left me
Mhm.
feeling very inspired. I know I have to wrap up, but I do have one final question for you. And we talk about your dream
Mhm.
and we talk about your legacy. How do you see legacy building from your perspective? What do you want to leave back? Everything that you just said about technology and the world is changing. What do you want to leave for your children and the children in the diaspora or the young next generation in the diaspora?
So everything I do in life, whether it's business, whether it's leisure, whether it's the way I carry myself, I invite my kids to be
I
there.
love that.
Sometimes you plan, hey, look, I have to wait until my son is 18 years old. Tomorrow's not granted, right? So I make sure every time we have this mission, it's a family thing, as Keith talked about. So I try to make sure that the younger generation sees what we're doing and hopefully carry on that legacy. It's sometimes you look at them and say, hey, they're too immature, they may not understand it, but they do. I think children are more intuitive than we think they are, and that's my dream. My dream is to leave a legacy. Have those dreams where I wish we all get back together where we were in the past, where we're not so much on social media and the world is passing us by. We're at the water hole, we're at the bar, we have a village, we're speaking to each other face to face, looking each other in the eye, and carrying that legacy for my kids to be able to carry it on.
And just for those of you out there, everybody at the bar is over 21, okay? So calm down. Relax.
Well, thank you very much for looking us in the eye today and having such an amazing conversation. Today, we looked at leadership in a very complex industry, but really the rules for success are simple. It's about hard work. It's about having a vision. It's about being a tool to learn and a tool to give. It's also really about building a circle, building support systems, getting the right people to help you. It's moving past the dark times. It's moving past those times when you're really challenged. It's about having a sense of humor, having a dream, focusing on your kids,
Inspired.
and being inspired. And to all of us who have come from strong women and strong men and family, we shout out to them. And even if you have challenges, there is a lot of strength and dignity in our tradition. So thank you all for listening today. Remember, tune in to the We Whistle podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, and of course, YouTube. Thank you. See you on the next side.
Before we go, Keith, Raymond, where can people go to find out more information about the foundation or the work that you guys are doing?
You go to bhb.com and you'll kind of get our whole life story, how we started and what our future goals are.
Yeah.
Thank God. And a shout out again to Keith and Michelle.
Shout out Keith and Michelle.
And don't let Keith, we're talking about a guy that has never made less than a perfect score in anything he's taken on ACT or SAT. Harvard grad. So it's that network, that structure we have.
Surrounding yourself by excellence, right?
Yeah. So he's very unassuming, but very sharp.
And thank you for the work that you do and the honesty and integrity with which you shared today. We deeply appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you.